President Kennedy has been assassinated. It's official now. The president is dead. Women here in shock, some fainted. Grown men, Secret Service men, standing by the emergency room, tears streaming down their face. There's only one word to describe the picture here, and that's grief, and much of it.
1963 was the last time that an American president was actually assassinated. There have been attempts since, but on that day in Dallas, the president was riding in an open motorcade together with his wife, and shots rang out as he passed through downtown Dallas. He was struck, taken to a local hospital where he died at the scene, and the assassin was caught about an hour and a half after the person they thought did the shooting, but there was total pandemonium.
Sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh?
The amazing thing is, it's hard to imagine that 62 years after John Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, that we're still arguing in the United States about documents that haven't been released to the public that were created by the FBI, the CIA, and others. The American people have a right to know what their government knows about this case. Documents that were sealed should have been released decades ago. One of the reasons that so many people are suspicious about what happened is because the government is still holding on to files. So Donald Trump has said, release these files.
A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades.
Millions of documents have been released since the president was assassinated. 99% are released, but since Trump was in office the first time, Trump and Biden didn't release all of them, but they released thousands of pages. So we're down to about 3,000 pages left. In the pages that were released in the last 7 or 8 years, when you look at them, you have to ask yourself every time you see a new document, why was this even held back? Why was it secret? It contains the name of some CIA agent or an asset that the CIA used who's long dead. It has some CIA station or a way that they gathered intelligence 60 years ago. It's crazy that all of our enemies, the Soviets, the Cubans, whoever, do not know everything in those documents. They're only being withheld by the pencil pushers inside the CIA and other places who say, we don't want to disclose all of that. There's no reason to hold them back.
John F. Kennedy settles into office as the 35th President of the United States, the youngest man and the first Roman Catholic ever elected to the office.
The Kennedy family is split. It's like everything else. You get 10 people together, and some people think there's a conspiracy, and some people think that it was just a lone assassin. It's very hard to get agreement, even inside the family. So RFK believes that not only was his uncle, who was the president, President Kennedy, killed as a result of a secret state plot, but that his father, Robert Kennedy, was assassinated in 1968, was also killed as something of that same type of nefarious government plot, as was Martin Luther King, the great reverend who sort of, changed the nature of civil rights in America, was also killed in 1968. So he's suspicious about all the assassinations.
There's overwhelming evidence, I would say, that the Warren Commission report was not accurate, which is what my father thought.
I've always said that if there were 2 shooters at Dallas that day in 1963, only one of them hit their targets. It was only the person firing from behind, who was Oswald, a 24-year-old former Marine sharpshooter with his own gun that he had tried to kill an Army general with just a few months earlier, who actually hit Kennedy, and they know that from ballistics tests to the exclusion of every other gun in the world. If there was another shooter there in Dallas that day, they either didn't fire their gun or they didn't hit anybody. But I do think that the files will show, the files aren't going to settle this case. Look, America is going to continue to stay split. And the reason that they will never settle on this case is literally 48 hours after Oswald was arrested by the Dallas police, he was killed in police custody by a man who looks like he's out of Central Casting in Hollywood, as somebody who's trying out for a mafia role, a nightclub owner called Jack Ruby. So you look at the case, look, when I started to investigate in the early 90s, I thought it was a conspiracy because of Ruby's murder of Oswald. I thought, that's a silencing. There has to be something more here. So I understand why people just will never believe that it's as simple as a single assassin. The documents will shed a lot of light on it, but I don't think it'll settle the case. So I always say to people, if there really was the grand deep state conspiracy that you think, it's not going to be found in a document produced in the National Archives, unfortunately.
We'll be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files.
I'm actually somewhat excited if they have an open mind. We all would like to see the Epstein notebooks or the things that we see Epstein might have had. COVID-19 is certainly, a topic of a heavy debate. So yes, if they can make some more progress on that, the lab leak and what would be fantastic. And on 9/11, I wrote a book called Why America Slept. I've always been suspicious about Saudi involvement, not at the government level, at least at the senior royals level. And so I think there's material to be had on that. So on those areas, I think there's something great. But as Representative Luna said the other day, the first item on their agenda will be the JFK assassination. I actually think 9/11, the Epstein files, and COVID might be more pressing, but what do I know?